This podcast is hardly focused.
The French.
Hey everyone, we are Hardly Focused. We're at hardlyfocused.com. We're part of the Saul Listen Podcast Network. Jack Gill, Zach Ward, and joining us here on Hardly Focused. They call him Woke Karen. Thank you for coming on the show. Happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. Happy to be here. Thank you.
That's the best name, by the way.
Yeah. It started off as a Twitter handle. I was just saw like a funny photo of somebody with like the Karen like haircut, like with like some like really like strong political like sign that I like agreed with. I'm like, that is one woke Karen right there, and ran with it. Here we are. Yeah.
I love it too because like it needs really no introduction. Like those words immediately just give you an image in your head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there was like a period of time where I was just like, oh man, like people are insane about like, you know, like this whole woke thing. They're like insane using it like to like attack everything. Like I wonder if like I'll like kind of like throw people off like who are like first discovering like, you know, my content. They're like just immediately see the word woke and are like, absolutely not. Thought about like, you know, changing it to like ultra Karen or something like that. And then I'm just like, no. Hold my ground. Absolutely not.
This is like the best way to define your niche with that name. And like that's kind of how like honestly, if I remember first reading the name, I was just like immediately I was just like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And then looking at your content, I was like, okay, this is good. I'm gonna keep watching this stuff. So for any of our listeners, subscribers who don't know, Woke Karen makes a lot of social political kind of topical commentary on things going on. And honestly, a lot of what I like about what you're doing is I can't think of too many like I hate to do the whole generational thing, but like, you know, like I know that you're like younger than us, and like there's always that like I just feel like there's always this like stupid bullshit online about like millennials versus Gen Z and like Gen X and all this stuff. And like, I don't know, I just find it refreshing to see someone like your age that has the takes that you do. And like, I don't know, especially with what's going on now, it's nice to have some content creators like, oh, I feel like this is restoring some sanity points for me, just listening to someone talk that is actually saying things that make sense, that aren't just like, you know, lip service.
Yeah, absolutely. Wait, just super quick. How old do both of you think I am?
I'm assuming 20s.
I was going to guess a ripe old 29.
I'm 30. So you were close.
Damn.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm 30.
Nice.
Yeah. Technically, I'm a millennial, so not even Gen Z, but I guess like kind of on the cusp, but you know.
So welcome to your 30s. It only gets worse from here.
This is what I've figured out. I just started getting really bad breath, just like my dad had in the morning. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a reason why my head's shaved right now too. Because you know, the whole grandpa thing. I already seen what my grandpa looks like, so it's starting to happen to me.
I woke up and my shoulder was killing me for no rhyme or reason, so I just chalked it up to 35. That'll do it for you. Although I was
30s.
Last weekend, I was in the company of similar aged men, and they all are bald or balding, and they're all lauding me for having a thick dome of hair. And I'm like, the older I get, the more I realize I should be so blessed. But boy, do I just hate having hair. Zach, I don't know, like if you're envious at all of me for having it, but I'm just like, I can't, it's work. Every day I have to get up and I have to comb it. And half the time I just throw a hat on because I don't feel like dealing with it.
Honestly, I find I have an easier time managing my beard than like the hair on my head. I just find it's easier most times just to shave it or cut it down. Mm-hmm. And like my beard, just like I don't know, something about taking care of my beard is easier for me. I don't know why, but it is.
And meanwhile, well, Karen, he's got like the pencil thin stash going on.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't say, well, I mean, I would say pencil thin, but like it's definitely got that like that classic like mustache vibe.
Everybody in my comments tell me that I need to comb it, so I don't know. I just grow it and let it do its thing and hope for the best. So
have you ever tried
to with it?
Have you ever tried to twirl it?
No, but I mean, like I previously said, I am technically a millennial. I see a lot of millennials with that style. I'm all for it. It's very like gnome centric. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like very whimsical. I'm all for it. I love whimsicality. So maybe in the future I'll get a little twirl going on.
Okay.
Where suspenders, go
Bow
all
tie.
out.
Yeah. Bow
Well,
tie,
then
bowler
that makes
hat.
me feel
Yeah.
even better about like watching your content though. Then because like I don't know why that just for some reason I assumed that college, but yeah, I guess everybody you can still go to college at all ages. So I guess
Mhm.
that makes sense.
I
Says a
will
little bit
say.
about me.
Yeah. I will say I just got done. I like just like growing up. Yeah, just very disillusioned with school and education. Was like fuck going to school. I started like working in the service industry. Moved to bartending and then decided to go back to school. So I actually just got my bachelor's degree
Nice.
last
Nice.
year.
Nice.
So yeah.
I took, oh God, almost 10 years. I took 8 years to get my associates. So I know what it's like. Same deal. Didn't want to go to college, dropped out, worked, and then decided, well, at the very least, like set myself up to, because we live in Massachusetts. There's a program that if you get your associate's degree, you can then transfer to a state university. And they, all your credits go, you pay like half the tuition cost. It's great. I set myself up to do that, and I could do it at any point. I just haven't done that part yet, especially considering it took 8 years for me to get my associates, literally taking like one class at a time. Because then I realized, because growing up, and maybe you heard the same thing when you were growing up, if your parents caught wind of you in your disillusions about wanting to go to college, then they're going to tell you, well, as the older you get, the harder it's going to be to go when you start working full time. And I'm like, oh, pish posh to you, father and mother. And I hate it when they're correct. Oh, does it just grind my gears when they're correct? They were
No,
right.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, thankfully, like I was in Portland, so it was like a very commuter school, very cheap. I got everything on like financial aid, but like no, absolutely that like time out of the day that you like could be spending like doing an extra shift. Fucking yeah, it's horrible. It's and if there's any listeners out there who's like on the fence, bright eyes, just wondering like, should I go to school or should I establish my life first? Go to fucking school. If that's like if that's like at all like in the plan, it makes life so much easier. Seriously.
Yeah, and I'll say for my part, like that's definitely it because I would have definitely had a degree by now if I didn't have crippling anxiety and ADHD
That too.
around the time when I started trying to do college, and then not also having any real support from my family to push me to do the things that I should do. So it definitely has been a lot harder for me. Like I'm taking the certificate angle. Like I've at least found that one of my strengths is project management. So I'm going to get that project management Google certificate. And then that's just going to cement things for me because that's what I enjoy doing, making things put together. But like, I feel like all of these kind of topics kind of dovetail for a lot of the things that kind of, I don't mean, I guess I don't want to start by saying that. I guess I'm more curious. What gave you the idea to start making this content? Like, not like because I'm assuming you started around or got the idea around the pandemic time, like most the content creators that are getting big or have been established now. But I'm just curious, like, what gave you this idea?
Oh yeah, I'll drop all the lore. I'll explain. It's actually quite the seasoned tale. So like TikTok, right? Did either of y'all like spend any time on TikTok like during the lockdown or anything?
I was, and I'm still like, I'm not saying like against TikTok. I post stuff to TikTok, and you're at woke_Karen on TikTok. But I don't like watch things on TikTok unless they're sent to me directly. And I noticed because like everyone was getting into it during the lockdowns. Certain people that I knew personally that I didn't like were really into TikTok. And I'm like, well, if this person likes it, then I hate it. And then I realized once I started posting to it, wow, it's worked wonders for us. So now I'm like more for it. But yeah,
their algorithm works, man.
Yeah, now I'm curious to know your background with it.
Yeah. So like I was just like essentially like it all started out with like essay videos for me. Like on YouTube, I was just like making essay videos, just trying to kind of like I was going to school for sociology at the time, so I was learning all these things, and I wanted to kind of like connect them to my like interests of just like like history and just like the way how like you can explain things that are like in the present, because it's really fascinating, and I wanted to do that just like like connected to like video games or music or like movies that I really like, and I still do that like to this day, but like that's how it all started, and I put in so much work into these videos, got fucking nothing in return, just got like 16 views, weird comments, like I had like 30 subscribers. They were all my friends, but I was like, okay, I need to start promoting these. So I moved to TikTok because I was already like hopelessly addicted to it. And I like kind of like noticed that like promoting your content on TikTok never works. I just like there is always going to be like TikTok and probably other algorithms and platforms will know that you are promoting something. They know that like they will like connect the dots of like they are trying to get viewers from this platform where they currently viewing this to another one. We don't want them to move to that platform, so we are going to suppress it. That's just my tinfoil hat like explanation for that. But it makes a lot of sense and it explains quite a lot.
I would not put it past them with all the weird stuff that has happened during that entire time with other content creators that randomly just get suppressed or like shadow banned and like all that stuff. That I've been deep in the lore for a while, so like I know a little bit about like what people have dealt with trying to establish themselves, because sometimes people just have their platforms ripped right from under them sometimes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's really hard out there. Like if like you have like a goal of just like, if your entire goal, I'll say that it is easy to make content on TikTok and like have it like be like organized around that. But if the second you are trying to advertise something and you are not paying TikTok, you are not giving TikTok your money to push those videos out, they will immediately notice. And yeah, like you said, like entire platforms just like essentially like becoming dead. It's hard out there. So I guess the moral of the story in that regard is like I eventually was just kind of like, okay, I need to focus on TikTok or YouTube and TikTok like separately, build a following on TikTok, and then like the people who really like, like my stuff can go to YouTube. So I was just kind of like figuring out ways to just like, push that along and like, find videos that like do well. And there was this content creator who specifically like did rage bait videos. I do not want to say their name because they're like a piece of shit, and like
they were not gonna give them anyhow.
Do not want them to get any sort of recognition or anything. But they did this thing where like it's kind of sad because they had an obvious eating disorder. As in like it was like a man in his 30s. He had good like health, but like his whole shtick was he would just duet like food videos, and like I guess he was like Australian or something. He's like, oh, that's disgusting, you're putting oil in all the foods, you gotta not put oil, and just like essentially like make weird comments on people's bodies and like be like you need to eat just like vegetables with no oil and no seasoning and just choke it down, it's not supposed to taste good. Very sad. Lots of like like gym fanatics and health fanatics like think just like that. Whole can of worms. Yeah, very, very sad. But anyways, they were like posting those videos like every day, and it got like huge numbers, and like everybody kind of like recognized it because like he would just be such a fucking dickhead, and it was like rage bait. People like commented, be like, hey, you're being a dickhead, and then that comment will like boost them in the algorithm. But then I started noticing that like sometimes he didn't like comment on the food at all. And like he would like do that duet style video, you know, where you're like side by side with like a
Yeah, I
video
hate
of food.
them. I hate them.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that's not what you do.
That is what I do, but yeah. Exactly.
Well, see, no,
yeah.
there's a difference because like there's a lot of like cookie cutter like ones out there. Like you can do split screen stuff if you're actually adding something different to the context. If you're just there and you're just like,
oh yeah. No,
those are the ones that I hate.
Yeah.
Or like the ones that are just randomly splicing together this one thing, like it's like food, and then someone like an animation from something is like, why are we doing this? I don't know why that's a thing anymore, and I hate it because it's playing off of my psyche because I know I've accidentally watched them for too long, and now I'm getting them all the time. But I digress.
What I love is
I get those too, but yeah,
one of his shorts is it's about torrenting shows in movies, and it starts off, it's like it's a duet, and you've got like you're watching someone make this incredibly delicious looking dessert, and you start off saying something like, all right, what's he making? And then you spend 45 seconds giving a detailed rundown of how to torrent videos and what programs to use and how to find all this stuff, and you end it with, that looks good.
How,
I'm going to eat that.
Specifically, I just want to say how not to torrent, specifically step by step, how you don't torrent, because torrenting is illegal.
Yes, it's legal,
yes.
and nobody actually knows how to do that. It's actually the Wild West of the internet. No one knows anything about it.
Sure, I certainly don't know how, and I didn't learn anything from your short.
And you got to think about, you know, the production companies, the studios. They're really
they're
hurting.
Always hurting for money.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this person essentially would do those side by side food videos, and they would just like not talk about the food. And I noticed that. I'm like, this person is not regarding the food. This person is just totally ignoring it, and they're still getting a lot of views as if they were like, you know, like they just lost the plot essentially. And then I noticed like, oh, actually, like I think like I have this theory that like if you like had a really engaging video next to you, you wouldn't even need to talk about it. You could just like do your own thing, and then like the viewer retention will get boosted because if they get bored like looking at your face, they could just look over at the food. And I could be wrong on this, but after I started doing it, I started getting those videos that you were talking about of just like, you know, like slices from like content, and then like paired with like, you know, like whatever, like stimulating like cooking video, or like, you know, like a satisfying video, like whatever you want to call it, ASMR, like visual ASMR type of things. I started like getting those like a couple months after my videos started blowing up. Maybe I'm egotistical for thinking that, but I'm just kind of like, I wonder if like the success of my videos had anything to do with like, you know, pages starting to like post that more often. But like I said, that could just be egotistical and just like have nothing to do with it.
I'll roll with it. I think that's great.
It's interesting from a sociological standpoint, because like those were the videos that actually made me like start following you and look for your content, because I liked the fact that you sandwiched these things. It's like, it felt like, okay, there's something else going on here, because like the important thing is the thing that you're saying after that. And like, this is cool to look at, but like, I'm not here for that anymore. Now I'm here to see the thing that you're talking about. And I really like, it feels like it was like playing off of our natural brain's attention span. Be like, oh, I feel like I'm really zoned into the thing that you're saying. And like, I like that you do that. I wish more people would think of quality when they do these things instead of just slapping stuff together. But
absolutely. Yeah. And you know, I actually get that a lot. I get like DMs. I mean, like me personally, I do have ADHD, diagnosed with autism at a very young age. So, you know, I totally understand where everybody is coming from when they say this, but they say that like I help people care about issues that I talk about because it is next to like the stimulating thing that does help them stick around and hear me out. And I do think that's like a pretty like cool thing that I never considered going into it, like a cool you know, externality, something that just like happens. Yeah. totally cool with that. I'm glad that other people are like thinking of like ways to I don't want to like I guess like splice brain rot with like real like important things you should like care about. I'm all for it. Yeah. Whatever gets people listening and like thinking about the issues, do it. You could, yeah, absolutely, fully endorse it.
Yeah, because I feel like that's another thing that kind of I feel like is the vibe with a lot of what you're talking about, because most of what you're talking about, it feels like there's something tangible that people can take away from, apply to their actual life. And, you know, I feel like more and more that's the kind of thing that, like, especially as we're all getting older, like not just our generation, but like the generations that are also starting to progress through this stuff. It's important for us to have these things, because I feel like these are like the niches of critical thinking that we all are craving in a lot of ways. Because it does kind of feel like when you look at like social commentary in general, and you can take a step back from like the Gamergates and take a step back from like all of the weird fandoms and doing all their weird stuff, and take a step back from the fact that we live in a corporatist society, and take a step back from...
I've fallen off a cliff, Zach.
But my point is, people are hungry for authenticity. And like that, I think, is something that you actually have. So, I mean, what kind of just like started driving you to like put all of these things together?
Well, I mean, like I said, just like I guess I should just like clarify this like bit really quickly. Just like what you said about authenticity. That was like what I gave you, like the story was like my experience of how I started posting this sort of thing. But after I started like engage, like TikTok does this thing where like if you engage with certain videos, it'll show you other creators who also engage with those videos. And I found out that I wasn't even the first person to be doing this trick. I was sort of the first person to be doing it in the way that I was doing it, where like I talk about like, you know, like actual like scripted like political like rants, but there was like another person who was doing like rants, and I found out that they were doing that like shortly after. They're great. Their name is Pigeon Goblin. Super cool, but they were like essentially doing what I was doing before. So I guess it just like, yeah, it's just like all falls together. Like it really is like it was like an idea that I don't like really like think that is like particularly like profound. Is just like, if I was somebody already did it before me, if that person didn't do it first, someone would probably do it a couple months after. Not to like, you know, put anybody down or anything, but it's just right there, and it's such an easy like an accessible like thing to do. And yeah, I guess like as far as like making the content goes, I did it because I do care about these issues, and I do want people to know about it. And I did want to kind of like at the time be like to kind of be an educator, because like I just like noticed that like when I talked about these issues, so many people didn't actually know. So I wanted to like cover a lot of bases, not really like just being an educator, like specifically, like not really what I want to do now, like teach people about like history and like, you know, like all these stuff, but like more like focus on like niche issues that like because like whenever I did focus on like trying to like educate people, I just got into like weird territories of like people just kind of like, you know, leaving spammy comments of just like, we already know about this and like stuff like that. So kind of moved away from that, just focused on politics. And I think that ultimately, I don't know if y'all have like noticed, but I've been moving away from short form and like doing those type of videos of like the duets and stuff. It's mainly because like well it's because of like just like the toxicity that like you get from shorts, and just like nobody chooses what short they watch, it just shows up on their feed, so like people get really angry and leave all sorts of like crazy comments. But also fuck, I lost my train of thought. So
you're at the right place.
Yeah, I got to the right place. I think that like I just have a lot more freedom, just kind of like, like kind of like building a bigger project instead of like doing like daily things. It's been really helpful for that. Yeah. Stop myself from going crazy.
Well, you're on Patreon too, Woke Karen, all one word. And one thing that I like that you do with all of your videos is you specifically call out your supporters. And I know other content creators like they have Patreons and they are very, they're varying degrees of generosity when it comes to their supporters. But I do like that you specifically call them out at the end of your videos, and you even do videos specifically just to say like, hey, here are my biggest supporters on Patreon, and just making sure that they're getting that recognition. I really like that you do that.
Thanks. I'm trying to do it a lot more often. I feel like everybody who starts a Patreon, they worry about that, right? Just like making sure they get their money's worth, I suppose. I guess it's maybe a flawed way of thinking about it, because a lot of patrons are doing exactly that, just like supporting you, and don't like expect any to get their money's worth. Their money is already being, it's being spent the way they want it to, right? But I just like always feel like I gotta give them like a video, especially recently. But yeah, no, been doing exclusive content. That's been fun.
You find that's worked well for you?
Yeah, it's worked well for me. I've been doing a lot of really niche things over on Patreon, which has been fun. Doing a video series about movies that are about assassinating politicians, just like as an art form. So fucking interesting, especially like I was talking about with like the YouTube videos, like the politics and like the historical explanations of like everything that like leads up to it. More interesting than like the product itself a lot of the time.
Do you find that the, I guess, responses to feedback that you get to your videos, do you find it comes from any one side, or do you find it's more like centrist? Like it's just there's not anyone really coming from the left or coming from the right. It's just, everyone's just kind of in the middle. Do you feel it sways any one way?
Just like as far as my audience goes, or just like who happens to get my videos?
More who happens.
Right. I would say like most people who comment are like at least adjacent to my community and my political leanings. So it is like more on the left, but like I said earlier, with the short forms, nobody chooses what videos they get. And a lot of time what happens is people engage with like stuff they don't like to be like horrible and like, like leave nasty comments. And then like the algorithm is like, oh, this person's engaging with this, which means we got to give him more of it. So get a lot of just perpetually angry people who are looking for an outlet. I just think the internet's making everybody fucking crazy.
Oh my God.
Horrible. Yeah. It's yeah.
Well,
because like the way that works is like it makes sense from like a technological standpoint that like you would be filtered that way. But like when you think about the impact of that, like literally the algorithm is learning to give them content that they don't like so that they can harass people. It's enabling them to be harassing because it's designed to give them stuff that they like and they interact with. And Rage is still liking and interacting, apparently. So it's
a powerful emotion. People like to be angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of leads me to my next question for you, or I guess discussion point here is one of your most recent videos on your YouTube channel is called Legalized Comedy. Says the least funny person on earth. And what resonated with me in that video in particular was you were talking about cancel culture. You just said that the internet is just, it's a frightening place. It brings out the worst in people. And truthfully, cancel culture, it really, I think it's just a dumb concept, but it really became prevalent in the last, like 10 years. Like really when people fully began to grasp, well, it's two things. people began to grasp just how social media could be leveraged and what they could do with it. And then also the general political climate really angried up the blood, I guess. But that's when you really started to see people go up against, lash out against various public figures, celebrities, whatnot, the digging up of old tweets. James Gunn comes to mind. And look how that turned out for him. Dude's he's literally running DC Studios now. Like
obviously canceled. Obviously his career has been destroyed. Yeah.
And that's why I personally hate the way that the term has been used, kind of similarly how woke has been co-opted in a lot of ways and strayed from what it really should have meant. But yeah, like it doesn't really exist in the sense that it doesn't really affect everyone the same exact way. So it's kind of a bullshit buzzword at this point. It doesn't really mean anything to really anybody besides the people that like making other people angry all the time.
Yeah, I mean, like I think like what it comes down to is like there's not really like a universally agreed upon definition of what it means to get canceled. Some people will say it means your career has been completely destroyed and like you're just done, and like you gotta like put the fries in the bag or like figure out something, like do something that's not online or like that's not in the entertainment industry or like something like that, which like if we kind of like look at like what happens, like I can't really think of many examples where that actually happened unless like we're talking about somebody who literally committed a crime, like somebody who like Kevin Spacey, where it's just like, yeah, I don't think canceled is the right word for him. And also like he is like, he had an interview with Tucker Carlson as his like character in like House of Cards. Pretty sure that happened.
Yeah.
That
was weird.
Yeah,
that was really weird.
He didn't try to repair the damage. That's the thing.
That too.
He thinks
he leaned in.
Yeah. He thinks he's repairing it by doing those Christmas videos is Frank Underwood, and then even like his like a quote unquote apology when he's like use the opportunity to come out as gay. Like dude was given he was given water and is like, there's a can of kerosene over there, gasoline. I'm going to use that instead to put this fire out. But others, I mean, there's the thing about that I'm saying, like, I don't know if like it drives me nuts, but it's one of those things it's a rabbit hole that I fall down, is when it's someone that you can tell is trying to, I guess, repent, or they're trying to repair the damage. They're trying to save their PR, and it's just their name or what they're synonymous with ends up becoming like a trigger word for people who don't want to. They just tune out the apology. They tune out the steps taken to try to better themselves. They just see that person's name and they say like, "Oh, the person that did this, allegedly, supposedly, oh, they suck." And if you try to, reason with them, if you try to explain like, well, this is what they're doing to, since that happened, then you see the fingers go in the ears and they start la 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 la, like, okay, stubborn. Or I'm kind of going through that right now because one of my favorite bands, Brand New, has reunited. They're playing some shows coming up, but they were their frontman
passed.
Well, their frontman was caught up during the Me Too movement. His name came up with some allegations, and he he apologized. He this is where the controversy comes up, because he didn't apologize specifically for what he was accused of, but he apologized in general for similar actions, and then he disappeared for almost a decade, and he's now coming back out into the woodwork, and it seems like the response to his return and his band's return has been more positive than negative. It seems there are people that are, again, when it goes back to the trigger word thing, they see his name and they're like, "Oh, you mean that guy, that piece of garbage?" But now I feel like those names, those comments and all that, they start to get suppressed. Which I don't know if that's like a sign of progression. Obviously, we shouldn't downplay, what and call into question what accusations were made, but like trying to say like, hey, this person's trying to reestablish themselves and they're trying to come back, and there are people out there that care about them, that enjoy their work, enjoy their art. Let them come back. I guess this is my long way of saying, if they're not Kevin Spacey, if they're not Kanye West, let them come back. If they clearly are trying to better themselves, like, wouldn't you want a second chance?
My only thing with that is that this conversation is clearly muddy. There's no clear-cut way of seeing a lot of these things. Like, you can bring up so many examples that quash and boost this conversation. Like, the first thing I think of immediately when we started talking about this was I think it's Armie Hammer.
Yeah.
Armie Hammer. Yeah.
Armie Hammer. Yeah. And because that whole situation is crazy, but also that's someone who I can actually think of he effectively was removed, but at that point it was less a I kind of see cancel as if you start costing other people money and then you can't do anything. That to me is the only thing that really could even possibly be looked at as canceled. But that whole concept and idea can't really be boiled down to something as black and white as canceled or not canceled, because every situation is different. There are all the circumstances, and it should be different for the same reason that you mentioned, Jack. I don't feel comfortable just coming out and saying, yeah, let's give this person that was accused of X, Y, and Z another chance. I feel more comfortable being all right, they're trying to come out. Let's observe their actions, because at this point, the actions matter more to me than anything that they say, because obviously we've gone through this enough in the last several years to learn the difference between a authentic apology and an apology that has a specific intended effect.
Yeah, that's actually.
I don't know what your take is, Karen, but I know that's kind of how I see things.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I'll just say this, I think ultimately it's a case by case situation, and everything is a little bit different. And also, something that I always stress my official position is I do not think that cancel culture, I think of it more as just an increase, with the internet came this kind of sense of trying to reach or to enforce accountability rather, because I don't really see an agreed upon definition of canceled. And I think that a lot of these situations with Armie Hammer, for example, I think that I don't think that this is unique to cancel culture. I think that if a similar controversy came out where it's just hey, this actor has these weird obsessions with eating people, and they make people really uncomfortable, and all this insane shit, and they're the subject of headlines, I think that there's a good chance that they would have all during that time also not been not gotten calls back and kind of pushed out of the entertainment industry. And is that cancel culture too? Is cancel culture unique to the time we're living in right now? Because I just kind of think that everybody's kind of been boycotting people for a long time now over things that are reasonable, sometimes not reasonable. And I just think that, yeah, like I said, I think that there's kind of this new sense of puritanical purity within online spaces nowadays, of just we expect everybody to be perfect to a degree that's just probably not probably, that's just unrealistic. Humans make mistakes, that's just some mistakes, that's something that we need to come together and agree with about. But it really is case by case when we're talking about if somebody does deserve forgiveness for what they did, because yeah, sometimes people do things that get them boycotted that I'm I really don't think they should come back from that. If they did something insanely illegal and sexually assaulted people, I'm just
right.
Yeah.
that's kind of like a case that is just kind of like, I really like don't see a world where they could come back, and it would be super cool if they could like actually prove that they have changed as a person. But like something that shocking and that serious is like kind of like, yeah, it's not my place. Like I am not a survivor of sexual assault or anything. It's not my place to tell other people to be comfortable with that, to be comfortable with somebody getting leading roles who had that kind of like past. And I think that that's not like I said, that's not like unique to the time period we're living in.
Yep.
Do you think it's there's a gray area between like just an allegation versus like an actual either conviction or it's proven? Because that's one thing that I think it's great. I think it's like if someone said like this person has been accused of this, but then it's because then people are going to be trying to dig up facts, and it's like, okay, that's a pretty big accusation. What evidence supports this? And then when it gets dicey, then it's like, okay, so what do we do at that point? Do we just kind of hold the pitchforks, but don't yet set them on fire? Like, what do we do then?
Oh, I'm a huge fan of evidence and backing things up with actual, I mean, like I talked about this in the video, but like the singer Imogen Heap, I just like a couple months ago, people just like kind of decided, just like we're just like, oh, she's transphobic, and like they had no evidence to prove that, and then like people were being insane to her online.
Oh, I had no idea. Damn.
Yeah. And did you think that she was actually transphobic, or do you just not hear about?
I literally just like, I love Imogen Heap. I had no idea any of this even happened. None of it's even like came across my feed. So that's just all news to me.
And it kind of ties into another thought I have about cancel culture, where like it's all overhyped. It's all just like a small group of people that seem really large when you look at all the likes and all the comments and the ratios, but like ultimately it is a small group of people, and they are not reflective of like how people actually feel about, whatever situation. But no, yeah, people were just kind of like, I think ultimately what it came to was like, she liked a couple tweets that were from somebody like years back that were from somebody who might be transphobic. And she also followed Donald Trump on Twitter, which is like, I mean, like I follow right-wing creators on Twitter just to keep up with them. So
yeah,
it's like kind of like, yeah,
you can't really. No, I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down. Like, we're in a weird time. Like, I always I think of this time frame as like, I don't feel like this is exactly the right way to put it. But I kind of consider this as post age of information. We're in the age of accountability and authenticity, at least on the surface level, because like a lot of people don't realize that like that's kind of a big theme, and a lot of the things that people are upset about is like, like things appearing one way but being another, or people grandstanding and trying to make something appear one way and it really being another, like on like the smallest level to like the biggest level. So it is, I don't know, I think it's something that we all need to be able to continue to talk about, because it's better that we talk about it and we're aware of the dissonance. And that's the part of like this age thing. I don't know how to coin that, but like there's like accountability, there's authenticity, and then there's like just like allowing yourself to kind of just like see things as they are objectively. And that's like always something I strive to do, especially in a day and age where like all of your major things that you go to reach for, everybody's trying to spin something in some way. Like nowadays, I just kind of like will sit back and I'll gauge how I should feel about something based on like the aggregate responses I'm seeing in different places. And that's kind of how I inform myself and also keep myself a little bit more sane amidst everything going on. Cause like, I don't know how else to ground myself besides that.
Yeah.
I'll say this, like, sometimes I'm a dumbass. Sometimes I'm like, I hear something, I play into the game of telephone. I mean, like I don't post about it. I always try to make sure that what I post about is like actually backed up. But like when I hear something, I'm like, oh, they did do this. Like I'm not by no means like, like immune to any of this.
Right.
My brain is rotted just like everyone else's, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally get what you're talking about though.
That's important though, because like a lot of people don't know how to say that part out loud, and aren't willing or aren't as comfortable to feel that level of whatever embarrassment or like self whatever in your head to like be like, hey, I can get things wrong because again, I am just like you. I am a human being. And like we just should probably take something away from that instead of trying to pretend that we are a lot smarter than we really are. Like it's okay to not be smart about something. It just gives you an opportunity to just see it for what it is and learn something new. Like, don't have to be upset about it.
That's how I've been approaching life for the last 35 years. So, even in your video, that's this most recent one we're talking about, you even mentioned that there are some situations where people just, or I guess the target, the person in question just doesn't acknowledge it and just moves on, and then we all forget about it. And Shane Gillis came to mind because he's having a moment now. I mean, because arguably he was canceled because he gets cast on SNL and then gets immediately fired because old comments were dug up, and then he acknowledges it. And then he just becomes the guy who got fired from SNL after a week before he even had a chance to debut on the show. And then look what's happened since then. I mean, he's one of the top names. I'd say he's one of the top names in comedy. He's been back on SNL twice. And then even like the person that everyone thought was going to be most upset about his comments, who's Bowen Yang, just straight up came out and said like, dude, he apologized to me. Like we talked about it. Like I support the guy. Like, I think that's a great instance of like someone who we tried to quote unquote cancel them. And I will say, I'll admit on this show, especially, I was at the time not knowing anything about the guy, was just kind of jumped on the bandwagon and said, well, this guy's dumb. And then I've since come around. I think is a good instance of someone who kind of rose above all of that and has gone on to be exponentially more successful than maybe they would have been had their like initial career plans panned out. Like if he was on SNL, he could have ended up being like a Brooks Wheelan or a Rob Riggle and get fired after just one season because he wasn't good. Like one of those. Instead, the guy's on. I'm not saying like on top of the world, on top of Everest, but he's done much better for himself, I think, in the following years.
Well, I guess we'll never know. Yeah, but no. Yeah, what you said about like specifically like them getting canceled like help their career, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. But I will say that I think that I mean, what he said was crazy, and he did apologize, but he apologized maybe not in the best way. But I mean, like, it's just like an example of like he just kept on pushing forward. He kept on doing his thing, and I mean, like, he's not doing that stuff anymore. So I think that just like collectively, society was just like, yeah, cool, keep making funny specials, And I think that he's pretty genuine. He wears, I don't think he's like hiding anything. I don't think he has like hate in his heart or anything like that. So yeah, I guess that's my like opinion on Shane Gillis. Not my favorite comedian, but he is specifically the jokes he makes about like people with like Down syndrome, like so humanizing. Like when I heard those like jokes, I was just like, these jokes are actually like really well constructed, like really good. So I think that's like the first time like I actually recognize him. Like I didn't know him like when he was on SNL briefly or any time before that, but the first time I saw him was like clips from TikTok of that special. But yeah, I think when I was talking about that, I was talking more like situations about like individual creators who like find themselves in like controversies, like maybe like people with like a couple million followers or like stuff like that, who like maybe get into a controversy and then they just like keep on posting through it and then they're just fine. And I could think of like so many people who do that. The first person who comes to my never mind, I won't get into it. Yeah. Just I can think of a lot of people who go through that sort of thing. But yeah.
And another video that you did that is a complete pivot, but this is the one that Zach introduced you to me with this video, and it's about these tiny little, I guess, tertiary characters that appear in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, and they're called Chao.
Oh, okay.
And we both like Sonic first game ever, like first video game ever. So like we both diehard Sonic fanboys.
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
Classic.
But I loved it. Is just such a deep dive into the Chao Gardens in Sonic Adventure, and that's when I immediately I'm like, I like this guy, because you're right. The Chao Gardens were, I think, for me, a sign that I shouldn't be a parent. Because I just like to pick my Chao up and throw them around violently.
I mean, hell, we are the Tamagotchi generation. How many people killed their Tamagotchis that you knew growing up, Jack?
It's funny. I would take care of my Tamagotchis, and I went through a brief phase a couple of years ago where I actually bought like some new Tamagotchis, and I had like 2 or 3 that I was like actively taking care of all at the same time. And then I just one day I was like, I got like canine mouths to feed. I'll put these battery powered devices to the side. But yeah, that I've never seen really anyone get so passionate about about Sonic Adventure in that specific regard with the Chao Gardens.
That's surprising to me. People love Chaos.
People love Chaos, Jack. I don't know how far out you've like, because like the people have like tattoos of like the light and the dark Chaos. Like I've seen like people are really into it. But Sega is such an interesting company when it comes to that, and like when you were going into that, and basically the reason why they haven't come back, it seems just like it was kind of a hardware gimmick to show, hey, look at all the stuff we can do. There are so many games from that era. Like I could go on a whole hour rant on Final Fantasy VIII, because I feel like they suffered from the same thing. It was the same time frame. They were trying to show all the things that they could do in a Final Fantasy game with the PS1. And then the story is just one of the most convoluted stories. And it's also one of the most convoluted game mechanics. But yes, no, I actually really liked that deep dive into it. What kind of in your downtime, like what kind of things, like do you play like a lot of platformers? Or are you more like, I know we talked a little bit about RPGs, but curious like what media you like to take in, like games, music, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I love some RPGs. I recently beat Metaphor. I was taking my time with it, and then I just kind of like dove straight in and like beat like 3/4 of the game in like a couple weeks. Do not recommend doing that. That is a very long game.
It is.
Do not recommend doing that. Yeah. So yeah, I love RPGs. I really like 3D platformers. I've been getting into bullet hell games. Yeah, this new game made by in association with Big Mode video game donkeys company called Star of Providence. I've been loving that game. Oh, it's so good. And then other than that, I've been getting really into movies like recently. I've just kind of like pushed like shows to the side. So it's like either like what I watch is either just like kind of like artsy movies or like weird, like insane, but like still like entertaining movies. And then I just watched 90 Day Fiance because it's the greatest fucking show on earth. It is these people are fucking insane. It is the most depressing and soul crushing and hilarious show I've ever seen in my life. These people are fucking crazy. Highly recommend that. I haven't like jumped into like the like Darcy and Stacy, like all those spinoffs, but I'm very familiar with the universe. I've watched a lot of 90 Day the Other Way, 90 Day just 90 Day before the 90 days. Anyways, I'll get off that tangent. Just like a lot of like weird old movies. There's this movie this like movie collection. I don't know how to do it. Just like this group that puts together secret movies. I'm in Seattle called Classified Cinema. Shout out to them. They're awesome. But I've been going to them a lot. I've been like kind of like finding out about like weird niche movies doing that. And I recently watched a show, maybe like y'all millennials, you were in the right age period to like appreciate or like actually watch this movie, being like 5 years older than I was. Have y'all ever seen the movie The Good Son?
Yes. Oh, Macaulay Culkin.
Fucking crazy movie.
And I'm gonna have to watch that.
And Elijah Wood, right?
Yeah, baby Elijah Wood, like when he was a child.
Yeah.
Insane. That ending was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Did it traumatize you as a child?
Yeah. I mean, oh God, I had to have been about 10 years old when I saw it for the first time.
Oh, I know what movie you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. No, that is a traumatizing movie. Wow.
Yeah.
It's like Macaulay Culkin, but he's like in a we need to talk about Kevin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of we need to talk about Kevin McAllister. Yeah, so in that role, it fucking crazy.
Yeah,
the most unhinged movie that probably gave children nightmares.
I think that screwed me up the most just because he was a kid, and I'm thinking of like you never saw things like this happen to kids in movies like this. It was like unheard of.
He's kind of like the precursor to like Dakota Fanning, realistically, when it came to that. Because I can't think of a lot of actually, there is a movie called if you ever are really in for a soul-crushing movie experience, because the subject matter is very bad, Bastard Out of Carolina. It's a very well done movie. The subject matter is demonetizing. Let me just say that. It is fully demonetizing the subject matter. Great movie. I don't know if I could sit through it more than once, but really, really good movie.
Okay. What's it called?
I don't know. Bastard Out of Carolina. It's not for the faint of heart. If essay is triggering to you, do not look or search for that movie. Like, don't. But that's one of those movies that like I always like, one of those things I think about, like, okay, sometimes you see stuff and you're like, how do you get a role after you did that? Like how, like, because like that does happen to some actors. So like they just like play a villain character or play an evil role so well, and then people just they can't not see that, and then that just sticks with them. So there's
that happens a lot with child actors. Like people like think of them as like babies like forever. But yeah.
And I didn't realize, I didn't put two and two, Macaulay Culkin, and then looking at his life as a child actor from that period on, like I'm glad he seems healthy now, but damn, we put people through a lot in that industry, especially.
I mean,
absolutely.
I think he had his period where he was like doing bizarre stuff. I don't know if you remember this, but he was in a band called the Pizza Underground.
I think I heard about this, yeah.
And it was like it was supposed to be just a Velvet Underground cover band, but they changed all the lyrics to in themes of the songs to be about pizza, and it got to the point where like they'd be like performing shows and people would bring like legit like slices of pizzas, full pies, and just pelt him while he was on stage. And that was sort of during one of the lower points in his career. But he is, he got a star on, I believe he got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame within the past year. And there were two things I loved about that speech. First, his voice hasn't changed at all. He still sounds like 8-year-old Kevin McAllister. And two, when Catherine O'Hara, I believe she was the one that like presented him with the star, and he still calls her mommy. And I loved that.
That's sweet.
Yeah, that made me feel good. Kevin! So your video about Sonic Adventure led me down a rabbit hole because I found so I was curious about the actor that played Big the Cat. Because Big the Cat, well, I think probably one of the worst characters that Sega has ever come up with. He serves no purpose other than to take up space and, quite frankly, waste people's time. I mean,
showcase the fishing capabilities of the Dreamcast. Yeah.
And also, I hate fishing minigames, but tangent for another time. You play RPGs, you play JRPGs. The fishing minigame is always going to be there. But
the Sega Dreamcast, was a powerhouse for what. It was 1998 that came out, and in just the water levels, especially, and what you could show off coming out of like the PlayStation and the N64. So like, sure, there's the benefit there, but just Big the Cat's existence just in general. So I look him up, his original voice actor, and the voice actor is John St. John, who is the name sound familiar to me. So I look him up and I realize he is Duke Nukem.
I've got balls of steel.
So we went
That's crazy.
Yeah, we went from Duke Nukem to Big the Cat in Sonic Adventure. So to go further down the rabbit hole, I learned that John St. John lent his voice to a project, again, famous for Duke Nukem, now in a project called Doug Huggem. Have you ever heard of this?
Never heard of
this. No, I just had to brace myself for whatever it is you're about to play.
Mega 64. Are you familiar with Mega 64?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So like about a decade or so ago, they did a video. Probably even longer than that, because they mention Duke Nukem Forever having come out, and they announced that they want to make their own version of this game where kindness is the overarching theme. They want to call it a first-person politeness simulator. And like I said, John St. John lends his voice to the project. And they announce at the end of the video, and again, it's a Mega 64 like whole thing. So they announced that this is going to come out in March of 2024. Well, March of 2024 comes around, and the game actually came out. It is a game that you can play in your browser at mega64.com/Doug Huggem. They made a real game out of it.
Beautiful.
It's they say after 13 years in the making, Doug Huggem is finally here. Doug Huggem is the first kindness type game, a first-person politeness simulator that promotes positivity and teaches high octane morality. Wow, that's loud.
It's nice to be nice.
And this is why video games can be an art form.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just like you could tell it's like what do they call?
Oh dear, if I could only cross this busy street.
Little old Mima. It looks like a game jam project, one of those things they put together in 48 hours, but like
oh dear, if I could only cross this busy. Thank you, dearie.
So you help the old lady cross the street, but watch out for that car. Oh.
Okay.
I hit the old lady.
That's a fever dream.
I'm amused by this, but
this is Why is it going so fast?
Why not, Zach? You got to think outside the box here. But it's not just the old women you have to help cross the street. You just
I feel like dirt.
Me and you, the perfect friendship.
Thanks. I feel slightly better now, I guess.
So there you go. The whole point of the game is to make people feel good. So there you go. I wanted to show that to the both of you.
Perhaps the precursor to Smiling Friends.
Oh, I love Smiling Friends.
Yeah.
I love that show. What do I have that in here? I don't. No. What was it? It was a frog character. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Mr. Frog.
Mr. Frog. Yeah. He would just he would say something like really disturbing and then just kind of then chuckle and go, hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. That I wanted to just give you an idea of just the kinds of things that happen when I do show prep for this show. When I start doing research into topics and then the ADHD kicks in and then I learn about things like Doug Huggem.
Deep dive. Love it. Yeah.
So I don't know. Is that when you're doing prep, do you kind of, for your videos, do you find that all of a sudden hours have gone by because whatever you were originally researching, just now you're on some completely different plane?
Yeah. So one of my favorite videos was exactly because of that. It is a video that does not get a whole lot of views, despite it being like a video that I spent the most amount of time pouring my heart and soul into. And it was really funny because it happened during a time that was of really political importance.
Yeah.
It was a very important time to like be like doing like making videos, but I was just so fucking burnt out from doing daily short form videos. It just like it is a problem that I'm still working on. Is part of the reason why I'm posting more YouTube videos, because it's like I could kind of like branch out my creative energy in like more efficient ways. But it was during the US election night, or not night, just like that general period. Just like a couple weeks of me just like being silent. Because I've already given like, you know, all sorts of like, you know, like my takes and stuff on the election leading up to it. Did not give like, you know, any follow up, but the whole entire time I was pouring my heart and soul into just like this rabbit hole that I went down one day of just like, seeing an M&M commercial and seeing the green M&M and just being like, what happened to her? What she has been turned into the sanitized, safe corporate, like just like boring, like what happened to her? She used to be so insane. And then I just spent so much time. It was like a 55-minute long video just researching the M&M and everything like surrounding the green M&M, and it was some of the most fun I've ever had in a video. I originally was doing it for me, and then I'm just like, I can make some good fucking content doing this. And then I posted it, and everybody's like, dude, election just happened. What? You made a 55-minute video about the green M&M. What were you doing? Like, this is insane. We know where your mind was at.
So, oh man, I love that because that's actually one of my favorite videos. And I thought it was really good. It's like, oh great, okay, something not about the election that I could watch. This is awesome. Thank you, woke Karen.
Yeah,
and honestly, it was very thought provoking. It was very thought provoking. Like, why? Just like. I loved where you went with it, so I appreciated all the time and effort you put into it.
Yeah, it drives me nuts when I will plan a video or like a discussion topic for this show that then, like, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this will make a really good video for YouTube, like a you know, an edited video for TikTok, and I put a lot of time and effort into it, and it just it's this. It doesn't go anywhere. There's no engagement. There's no views. And then I've said this before on the show. I'll say it again. The videos, the bits, the clips, the ones that I put no effort into, the ones I don't think twice about, where then I go back later, I'm like, oh, we talked about this, I'll make a video out of it. And we end up just racking up thousands of views, which is, monumental for a production like this. And of course, it'll be the video where I just look like I am disheveled, that I've been sleeping in a closet for a week. My hair's askew. I'm in my pajamas. It's just like, I really could have, I could have at least made myself look presentable for this, but it's always the ones where I just put in, it's no effort, no, thinking twice about it, and it ends up being what, puts us on the map, as it were.
Always how it happens. I've had a thousand experiences like that, just like doing short form content in general, of just like, telling the message that I want to tell, like important stuff, or like, like maybe like trying to like spread like a GoFundMe for like a Palestinian family or like something like that.
Mhm.
And then it's just like getting nothing. And they just make like a fucking dick joke and it just explodes. And I'm just like, double entendre if you want to take it. Anyways, it's just so stupid. I'm like, yeah, totally get what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Been there.
Oh, all right. Awesome. Zach, anything else?
I mean, I can't really think of anything. I feel like we've covered I'm actually surprised we went this long. I didn't think we were going to cover all of this, but yeah, I mean, it's been a really great and engaging chat. I guess the only other question I have for you is like music. Like, what do you like for music?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Lots of people ask about the Jeff Rosenstock picture up above.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. I love Jeff Rosenstock. He's probably one of my most played artists. Yeah, I just love punk music. Love hardcore. Listen to just a lot of heavy stuff. Need to get more into that. I kind of have my like, safe artists who I like listen to a lot, and then just kind of like put on Spotify radios. Yeah, I listen to a little bit of everything. God, yeah, I guess it's not super interesting. It's just like just the punk music, just music that makes me feel rowdy. I like the mosh. Get in the pit. It's fun.
Rosenstock, he is going to be on the soundtrack for the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake.
Hell yeah. He makes very Tony Hawk adjacent music. That's awesome. Also, he did the music for Craig of the Creek.
Yes, that's
I don't
right.
know. Yeah. He's a very talented man.
So you like Rosenstock? Do you like Bomb the Music Industry?
Absolutely, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, love that. The ska band he was in, I listen to that sometimes. Arrogant Sons of Bitches, I think is their name. Yeah. God, just like watching him live is so crazy. It's just like all of those decades of experience and like performing just like makes just like one of the tightest sets and just like one of like the best shows you could possibly go to.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to see him live, do it. Love him. Also, one of the best bands I've ever seen perform live is a band called I can't believe I'm forgetting about the name.
That's their name. It's a really long name.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's like a Japanese punk band. And I'm looking it up right now. I can't believe I'm brain farting on this. I need to
One OK Rock.
Otoboke Beaver.
Okay.
Yeah. Otoboke Beaver.
That really rolls off the tongue well.
Yeah. They're awesome.
Rosenstock, I just realized I saw him open for the Gaslight Anthem on their reunion tour 3 years ago now, or almost 3 years ago. Yeah, he's great. I never heard of him until I went to that show and saw him. Became a fan.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool, man. All right. So you are on you're on TikTok at woke_Karen. You're on Patreon, woke Karen, all one word. YouTube, I believe is it woke Karen with the underscore?
Woke Karen with underscore. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. The Instagram is woke period Karen. I don't know if you said that. Sorry.
I didn't, but
Oh,
I was going.
I'm so sorry. I am. Yeah, just the room is hot. I need to turn down. Yeah, sorry. I'm not trying to. Yeah.
No, you're
sorry.
Good. You're good. So that's where people can find you. And thank you for hanging out with us here on Hardly Focused. Your first time being on a podcast, I'd say you did pretty good.
Oh, hell yeah.
Glad I could be a little entertaining. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to come hang out with us.